welcome back to State of the Franchise, the podcast that discusses franchises of all shapes, sizes, and origins. We'll be talking about their highlights, their lowlights, what could have been, and even beyond that. I am here with my lovely co-host, Fred Dakin.
That's so nice. He called me lovely. I liked it. I'm lovely.
And of course, I am Tom Stadler, unless I forget who I am.
Yeah, maybe, I didn't know if that was a tee up for me to introduce you, but I was just kind of in awe of being called
you didn't give him
lovely.
A compliment, I feel like.
No.
You should probably throw one back.
The fantastic Tom Stadler.
The fantastic Tom Stadler. See, if I put that on like my doctorate, I feel like everybody will believe I'm somebody.
Put it next to your degree on the wall.
Yeah, hey, honestly, let's just keep piling them up. The fantastic Tom Stadler, associate's degree, Tom Stadler. Happy New Year, Fred.
Happy New Year. It's good to be back in the 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, I realized we already had an episode this year that we didn't mention the new year at all, but now that we're actually recording in the new year and, trying to shake off the New Year's rust here a little bit, I feel like
Well, there's New Year's dust. There's Omicron dust.
Omicron dust, yep. And, as a victim of the Omicron or some similar COVID strain.
But you know what?
Nice to be back.
We had to come back to the stewed. There was no way.
The stewed was just waiting for us to be back.
After our last episode, people are hungry for more, and that's what we're here to bring them. And we got a great guest. We have the wonderful Shannon Cassells, an improviser of the Milwaukee area. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome, Shannon. We're happy to have you. You are
being the stewed.
Our second female guest on this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's an esteemed honor and one that we've been trying to correct for a while. So we're working on being inclusive. That's really what our end goal is.
That's good.
All voices, all backgrounds, all
franchises.
People, all franchises.
All franchises.
And we're here to talk about an exciting franchise this week. Our first reality TV series, the TV show Survivor. Ooh. Yeah.
I didn't know if it had a theme or not. I tried to go for a didgeridoo noise.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you were season 2, Australia over here, excuse me, didgeridoo in every season.
This is what we do. We bring in the experts. The experts know everything. And this is exciting because, truth be told, we probably wouldn't have done an episode on Survivor if it was just
drag
us.
them out here.
No, it was a good pitch. I think it's going to be one that it's going to be very interesting to explore the whole like reality TV as a whole, like that genre. Because I think there's a lot that I didn't really know about reality TV in recent years, just having watched maybe like Great British Bake Off recently. But yeah, I'm like, okay, so Survivor's still going.
41 seasons, baby. We just finished up.
Crazy.
Going on 42 in late February, I believe, or early March.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's pretty impressive to think that it's been on for, 22 years now? Mm-hmm. Jeez.
So for like the people who don't know, Tom, can you break down what Survivor is? What happens?
So Survivor is a reality TV competition in which a group of survivors go out to an island and they will be competing to be the sole survivor of this island. I had to get that vernacular correct, that it's the sole survivor. Through a series of competitions where they will be creating alliances in between. They'll be literally trying to survive on the island with limited resources and working to try and just outwit and outlast everybody else in the competition.
And outplay.
There's
the 3. And
it all ends with, on each episode, one person is voted off the island. Is it ever more?
I was opening my mouth to hear better.
Yeah, there have been double eliminations before.
Ooh, wow.
That's not like a common occurrence, but every once in a while, as we'll get into it more, Jeff Probst, the host, fellow Scorpio, he loves to incorporate twists. So, yes, there have been double eliminations. There have been double quits. There have been,
Double quits, so people just resigning from the show.
People, say, I'm out. And there also have been medical evacs. People almost dying on there.
Was that in season 2 that there was some guy who, got burned?
He, the smoke made him pass out, and he fell into the fire.
Wow.
God.
Yeah.
That's insane. Because I watched the first 2 seasons. So I had not seen a single season
When
until,
they aired?
Yeah, like originally when they aired, because it was
What
such
year
a
is that?
so that
2000.
yeah,
I think.
the series started back in the year 1990. Well, okay, it was 1997 was the original series called Expedition Robinson. So playing off of like Swiss Family Robinson, and
I think it was in like Sweden or Switzerland.
yep, it was a Swedish TV series. So it began in 1997. Then that creator, his name is Charlie Parsons, pitched the series to CBS, and then it debuted on May 31st, 2000, with Jeff Probst.
Jeff Probst.
Jeff Probst.
Jeff Probst, the host.
And it was
Probst.
produced by Mark Burnett, which, if you guys don't know, and it seems like you guys do not know reality TV, he produced a lot of reality TV, like Shark Tank, The Voice, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, and a different popular show that I'd rather not talk about because it involves a certain president that I don't like.
Yes.
But
yes.
he produced many hits.
I see. That's okay. That definitely tracks then as to why this has been going for so long. I feel like that adds that weight that he's been doing all these other projects. But while Fred and I think, have our origins, whether they be early or late, I think we're curious, Shannon, where did you get started with Survivor? Like, when was your first entry into the series?
Yeah, I started, same as you, right when it first started.
Really?
2000, I was a 9-year-old little girl watching it with my family every week. And that was something I find across borders, is that people who do watch it, it was like a family show. It was something you watched with your children, with your adults, like with your parents, with your friends, and like it's always been a communal kind of show. And it's something I remember like even going to school, and I would talk to like my friends at the lunch table about. We would talk about who got voted out that week. And Survivor was such a big hit that like it was if you were, you know, like working in an office at the time, it was something you would for sure talk about like at a water cooler.
Wow. So, have you been watching every season since then?
I fell off a little bit.
Okay.
So I watched it pretty regularly through high school, and then probably like my later years of high school, like junior year, I got more like into my friends and more into whatever. So I sort of stopped watching as religiously, and then I got back into it because the Twitterverse kind of exploded and like social media exploded in such a new way because everyone kind of had, you know, smartphones, everyone had access to like internet. And so it sort of like built in this community. So like Twitter became a big thing, which meant the Survivor players were like interacting as the season was coming out, and they were like talking to fans, talking to each other. So it almost became like a meta game too, because the players would talk beef to each other online, and like, and literally Survivor started putting hashtags into the show, which is pretty cringeworthy, but like, you know, like it became a whole thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like the Hunger Games.
A little bit.
If you could do like, what is it called in Hunger Games, where you can like send a little gift to like the person you like send like a tribute or something?
Yeah. They dropped like the packages onto them and the trees and stuff.
That would be cool, but unfortunately it's not live. So.
Yeah.
We should vote someone off this podcast by the end.
I'm feeling nervous right now. 'Cause I don't think I'm off to a hot start here.
If one of us gets voted off, that means you have to take over.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you have a
So-
chance to win a hosting gig out of this.
I'm ready for it.
Good. Okay.
So, what do you think you would do well in Survivor?
No.
Why don't you think so? Is it like the physical part, or is it the mental? Is it the, I'm going to call it the high schoolness? Because it's definitely like you got to be a little catty to play from the experience I watched.
You don't have to be catty. So it hurts you more, I guess, if you do like establish relationships and you work based off of emotion. It's like better to think of it as like a chessboard, you know? So you're kind of like, okay, like what's this person's best move? What's this person's best move? How do I melt that together? Like, okay, what's a good shield for me? Or like, how do I get moving further? Like depending on my skill. So it's all basically about like selling yourself in the situation you're in with the people you're with.
it benefits sociopaths, right? Like,
That's more
a
what I
little
was
bit.
going for. Not necessarily like gossipy, but like sociopathic behavior seems to like be a little bit of a benefit. I also have seen it get people into trouble.
Yeah.
But, like,
Oh yeah. I mean, it is a full balance, and honestly, it also depends on which era you're watching Survivor. like first season Survivor is much more based on survivor skills. It's much more based on like real emotions, and like literally like the first 2 seasons, if you said the word alliance, they're like, oh my god, you're like an evil person. I don't do alliances. La 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 la. Don't talk to me. So like it's like changed like how people vote, like what people like want. Why I think I'd be a terrible survivor is I'm a terrible liar, really bad at it. I'm also I like eating, and like, you know, if I don't have food in like an hour or two, I feel like I start getting headaches and I'm whiny, and I just don't think I would enjoy it.
You'd be like Nicholas Hoult in The Great. You guys ever watch The Great?
No.
There's a whole thing in the second season where he's like holding up, like he's like they're doing a siege of like his like keep, and the only reason he gives up is because he got so hungry he couldn't handle just hanging out anymore. He's like, I need to eat something, and they just like
Honestly.
wafting like cooked pork at him.
Yeah. I like my comforts for sure.
Absolutely. Fred, what's your history with Survivor, and how do you think you would do if you were on the show?
Well, like, it's definitely like peripheral knowledge from back in the day, because like I've said on this podcast, I didn't grow up with TV or any of that. Like, we didn't even get a lot of the channels on the farm that I grew up on. But I feel like you couldn't get away from it. It was definitely like one of the biggest water cooler shows, and I still always think about like the Office episode.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's when I think of Survivor, I can't not help think of that episode.
Right.
I mean, it was spoofed so many times. I still remember like the Family Guy bit too. They had a bit.
Oh yeah.
Mad TV had a bit. Yeah, everyone had bits. It's very spoofed.
I mean, it was so in the zeitgeist, I think, for the early aughts that you couldn't not avoid it, right?
It was like Survivor, and then it was American Idol, and now like I don't even know what it is now. What is it, Masked Singer?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, or like, I can see your voice, or whatever that one is. So many different things now. Yeah.
Do you guys happen to know, just from the zeitgeist, like any Survivor player names? I'm just curious.
Steve.
Yeah. What's his name? Johnny Too Quick, or?
Oh, Johnny Fairplay?
Yeah, that's him.
Too quick.
I
Johnny
forget.
Two-Face.
I think you recommended a certain season. I watched the first 2 episodes of it, and I did have my mind blown a little bit where they had to do this challenge right at the beginning, and then after that challenge, they were going to vote 2 people off, and they picked 2 people, and after they were about to get voted off, it was a switch up, and those 2 people got to take the helicopter back to the site, and the other people had to walk carrying all this stuff. So it was like the show was enforcing kind of a divide on the people, because they were like, oh, you think you're happy you get to take the helicopter back? Well, you are the least 2 liked people in this group now. And I was just like, shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's cold.
Oh, yeah. Survivor definitely likes to change up the mechanics, which is part of why I think it's lasted so long. They've changed it up every season. They add new mechanics to it. So the people who are playing sometimes don't even know what they're getting into.
Right. Yeah, it's just seems so cutthroat, and I don't even know. Like, I remember watching... Yeah, I think it was the first 2 episodes of like season 16 or 17. And it just was, it was so weird to see something too that felt a little outdated too. Like, I don't know, just the mannerisms of people, the styles that they were wearing. And I'm just like, whoa, okay, it's clearly a different time period, but it really wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 2011 or 2010.
You watched Micronesia?
I think so.
That would have been... Probably before that. It probably would have been like 2009 or 2008 at least.
Wow.
But if you think about it, like, people were still saying a lot of inappropriate things at that time period.
Well, they made a whole thing about one of the contestants being gay. And I'm like, why is this a conversation right now? And it just was, I don't know. It was a very odd thing to witness and be like, nobody would ever do this to somebody right now. At least not in.
Ooh.
Okay, let me amend that.
There is worse things that happen in later seasons. So
Really?
I will say, I guess, a spoiler for controversy: somebody outs a trans person.
Oh, wow.
And like season in 2017 or 2018. Yeah. So there are some bad things that happen.
Yeah.
But in terms of like part of why I like the show, I'm sort of skipping ahead here, but part of why I like the show is that it does like create a lot of like social conversations. Like I've had conversations with my mom that I think she would have never thought to even like think about like that kind of
Sure.
situation, and being able to kind of talk to her about it in a way that like she might not have ever gotten to without Survivor. And like, I don't know, it does open the doors for opening eyes to people who never experience a trans person, or you know, like,
Right.
there are some good stuff to the bad stuff.
Right. It's good educational moments, right?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
I mean, certainly it's like, yeah, like, oh, you know, I would think the same way. It's like, well, no, why would you think that way? Like, okay, let's examine this mindset and why it's inappropriate. Like, but it was just very interesting to think like this has nothing to do with their survival skills. Like, I'm like, just let them be.
Yeah.
Like, they're there to compete.
Are you guys into like survival stuff in general, like that sort of like the actual surviving part about like going like I'm thinking about the show Alone. Have you guys watched that?
No,
No.
I haven't, but
So
I've heard of it.
Alone is pretty much like people who fancy themselves outdoors people, you know, people who know all the skills, and they get dropped off in like Alaska by themselves, and it's like the last person who can still be surviving on their own is the winner. And it's these people who are like, I'm ready to the gills. I know how to do these knots. I know how to build a bivouac. I know how to like hunt. And then they like trip and fall and hurt their ankle in the first hour,
Oh
and
my
they get
God.
like hella patted out. But it like that's a show I really like because it kind of does have a similar thing, but it's a little more closed off because it's individuals. But it just like these people have all this confidence and like strategy, and sometimes you get to see that strategy work out, and it's really cool. But a lot of it is the people are like, I'm really hungry. Like I was not thinking about this. Do you what about like getting into the, I don't know what the word for it is, but like kind of the aesthetic of the show, the travel log, you know, sort of vibe of it? Do you guys enjoy that, getting to see the different locations? And
I think there's something fascinating about that for sure. Yeah, I think to even speak to the survival aspect, I think that's what's interesting about it to me. Like, you know, my experience really to date is like my dad and my sister love survival shows. Like my dad loves the show Naked and Afraid, or he did. I don't know if you know that's still on, but he was like the one who even got back into Survivor after we kind of fell off early on. And then he kind of brought my sister back in, and they watch it religiously now, like every season, like you do. And it's just funny though to like even see like they're like, oh yeah, I just want to see how these people interact. I'm like, I'm just interested in the destination. Like I think it is interesting to see, okay, what does this place have? Do they have snakes on these islands? Do they have lizards? Do they have, you know, whatever else it might be, scorpions? And like the Outback season, right? Like you have to think about all the different things that might be living down there. Australia's a frightening place.
Oh yeah, and the next season after that they had Survivor Africa, where they literally like had lions like right outside their camps.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
What about you, Shannon?
About the Survivor aspect, like, or like surviving aspect, I thought was much more of a bigger thing like in the first 10 years than it is necessarily now. And I do enjoy that, and I think that's part of the element to why it's fun. Like I think in terms of reality, there's a lot of reality shows like Big Brother and things like that where you are just like strategy and all that, but like to have like all that on top of it. So you do think strategically while you're hungry, while you're surviving the elements, while you're getting bit up by bugs and like have to like face all these things every day, no contact with anybody outside of like those people on the island, I think is kind of what makes it a recipe of such a fascinating show.
For sure. I think there's a lot to, I don't know, those types of shows. I think, you know, we can kind of even get into, you know, what we like the most, even just about Survivor itself. But I think there is something about seeing people persevere and trying to imagine, like, could I even do this?
Yeah.
How would I do if I was out there trying to do these things? And I'm like, you know, to even answer your question from earlier, Fred, I would do terrible on Survivor.
yeah, I would definitely be good at like the relationship and like the chess of it all. I think I would be good at playing people. I'm a little bit of a sociopath. I just felt like Willem Dafoe right there. I too am a bit of a sociopath. Myself. But yeah, like I am a very out of shape person, and like that's why my mind can't even wrap myself around it, because like I watched like the first usually the first trial is them just like picking up their shit and walking 4 miles, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Like, or just, I think I would do well in like the eating and the food stuff because I've like been hungry, and I know like I'll eat like anything when I'm hungry. I don't think I would have any issues with that, but yeah, I think it's just the physical aspect combined with a lot of times the intense weather.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, being rained on for days straight with barely any cover. Oh, being cold in general.
Yeah.
I could not handle being cold.
Do they do Winter Survivor?
No, but like if it's raining in the summer.
Oh yeah, I was just
and-
curious if they did like a polar one.
Well, and yeah, and you're like wearing like your bathing suit basically out there. And, like,
Yeah.
it just sounds miserable. Like that would be the worst. I think the problem for me would be probably the eating. Like I trying to survive off of low food, and I just get cranky.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like no way I can even think about the mental aspect of the game at that point. Be like,
Yeah.
no, just give me some food. Stay away from my business. Like I'm just gonna go to the next competition. I'm gonna try and whoop y'all, and I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, I think I'd do good in the competitions. Like I love like obstacle courses, and I like, I don't know, I like the adrenaline of sports in that way. But
Yeah. What is your favorite part of the show?
that's hard. I feel like I like kind of all the ingredients to make the recipe, but I like a lot of people I know don't care about the competitions as much. Like they don't really
Really?
care as much about like that aspect. I feel like it depends on who you are, but I still like it. Like I like seeing people push through when they're like you know they're the underdogs are not doing well, and then all of a sudden they like something changes and they end up pulling out a win. I like the relationship like building between each other, and I like it when like you could see someone's strategy forming and like it coming to fruition. And I will say like it is cutthroat kind of as you were saying, but like it is such a community that a lot of these people like are good friends for the rest of their lives. Like
wow.
people from the first season like you know are still best friends like to this day. You know like it is like a game ultimately. Like
Yeah.
you know if you play like Mafia or something with somebody and they like get you voted out, like you're still friends with them afterwards. Like you know it is a game. And people like create this like beautiful community of it, and it's wonderful.
Have they done like, you know, it's a big time for like legacy sequels? Have they brought back like people from the early seasons to do like a new
Have they
episode?
brought people back? That's okay. So I was actually also like I had a lull, like with like season 36 to 40. I stopped watching because like I just didn't care as much. But then season 40 was Winners at War, which is all winter seasons, and it was dope, and it brought me back, and it brought me back with a fervor. It's like I was into it, and like they
Wow.
had people from season 2 or season 3 winner was back, season like some seasons like there's been a lot of returnee seasons. People have come back throughout, but like there's been like people that never came back, like someone from like season 9 came back and things like that, where it was just really exciting to see someone you haven't seen for like 17 years.
Yeah.
You know?
And those people, like when they have those people that have come back and you know who you're going against, I feel like you have a backlog of like tape to run that you can watch
Oh,
and kind of
yeah,
learn all
for
their moves. So
sure.
everyone probably comes in like
Oh,
with
yeah.
knives out.
Well, I thought it was interesting too. I think the season I started watching on Netflix was like favorites versus fans, and I thought that was an interesting
cool.
aspect because it's like, okay, here you have people who've been watching all these other
Yeah.
people do this, and now they're like, you have these people who are like, oh yeah, you know, we're fan favorites, whatever, but they don't necessarily know how each other play. They might not even watch outside of being there.
You're put in a new situation, so
Yeah.
like you might not play the same way, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's just to add different aspects. I think to what you're getting at, Fred, is like there's a whole new element to the game when you come back and it's like, okay, here's what worked for me, here's what didn't. Now I have a chance to make amends on that. It's fascinating. What drew you in then when you started watching it?
Me, I think it is kind of what you say. It's all the ingredients, and I'm like taking it as I'm watching it. I definitely feel like, much like how we did our watch along with the Great British Bake Off, I could do something like this with like a Survivor, but I do not like fake drama in reality because I can see those seams so easily.
Yeah.
And I will give Survivor credit. That's probably only 10% of the show, while other shows it's like 75% of the show is this. And
Oh, yeah.
I also just have a real problem with reality show editing, how like every moment's built up to a peak to keep people in, even if it's false. And like that kind of stuff like really turns me off. But I agree, like I like the challenges. I kind of like when people are playing it like the mental game. And I also like it when people are playing the mental game and they're idiots.
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
Like, so satisfying.
They're like a dumb jock and they're like, I think I got the lay of the land here. And like everyone hates their guts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you hit on something though. I think that I agree a lot with is that the drama. I feel like now having like a film background too, and like knowing how the sausage is made behind the scenes, you can see through some of that stuff so easily sometimes, and you're just like, okay, this is clearly stuff that they're pushing them on. Like at the tribal council, that was nails on a chalkboard for me. I'm like, clearly this is stuff that he's like rehearsed with them even before they started filming. I'm like, and then he tries to throw a twist in there, and then they're like, wait, what? Okay, and it's like that stuff. Like it kind of takes me out of it a little bit, where I'm like, am I watching a reality show, or am I watching something that is just trying to manipulate people to do certain things? And I'm like, that because that takes it away from it. But I think what's interesting though is you get back to talking about like the competitions itself, and I think what I like about competitions on reality shows is similar to Great British Bake Off, where I like that like the timing almost doesn't matter. They try to make it look like, oh, this is really close, but it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to see how they're getting there.
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing I see on Amazing Race too, of like, okay, yeah, timing matters because you want to know who's in first place. But at the same end, it's like, I want to see how they're actually struggling with this competition. Because then you're like, oh man, dang, they really sucked at that. Call it the sports background too, that I just love sports. But it's just that part of it that I'm like, okay, I just want to see how they're doing. Oh, this person sucks at that. Oh, that person's amazing. Whoa. So it blows your mind a little bit.
What will get me into a show? Put some kids in there.
Oh, no.
You like Chopped? Chopped Junior. You know what I'm saying? Have you seen the show where they had all the kids go live by themselves, Lord of the Flies style, in like an old west like frontier town? I think it's called like Kid Town or something like really basic, but you can watch it all on YouTube. And if you want to see like Game of Thrones-esque like strategy and attacks, like I'm talking like old school kingdom shit, you gotta watch these kids because like there's one point where they get like a couple of chickens and the head people, which is like based on voting who's in charge, had to decide how they're going to like dole out the chicken. They actually have a kid there who grew up on a farm who will butcher the chicken. And at one point they have a tough decision to make, and this little girl says, like, she doesn't say in this way, but her point that she goes is, we'll kill a chicken to appease them.
Wow.
So they literally have the idea like, oh, we will give them this big gift to distract them from the shady shit. I'm like, y'all are like 5. Like,
that's crazy.
I recommend finding that on YouTube and watching it because I don't watch reality shows. That was amazing.
Wow.
Jeff Probst, please do not listen to this. Do not have children on an island. It is very emotionally scarring.
Yeah.
Hunger Games.
Like literally, he is like hinted like, oh, I want more 18-year-olds. I want more young kids. And we're like, no, Jeff, we do not want young people to play this game.
No, I think he's too busy finding people. I mean, even just some fun facts that I was going to pull up here. There's been 608 contestants on Survivor to date. I think that's unique contestants. So 41 seasons worth, 600 plus contestants. The crew has grown from a 75-person crew to 325 people work on the show.
Oh, yeah.
What is impressive to me about that is to know that there are that many people who are involved in this production, and yet it still comes together every year. You have cameramen on the island, like working around. I'm like, you don't even notice they're there for half the time. Like, it's crazy. I mean, the recipe was working because it was a top 20 most watched show through its first 23 seasons. So it's like, sure, he's trying to look for some things to spice it up, but at the same end, people love it. Like,
and it's made in over 50 different countries. So like, there's literally like Survivor Australia, like Australia has its own Survivor, like like Survivor
Isn't that just
India.
like everyone's surviving in Australia though?
But like literally 50 other countries like redo it and are still being made currently today. Like not like
that's insane.
Yeah, like it is a popular show. And a fun fact, Lost, the TV show, was fanfic for Survivor.
Really?
Yeah.
I get that vibe for sure.
I think I buy it too, honestly. When you watch Lost again or just think about how it starts, like, yeah, it feels like this exact setup. Just instead of alliances, you have smoke monsters and polar bears and whatever else is on there.
And I also wrote that it was the first highly rated and most profitable reality show.
Wow.
Like when it came out.
That actually does track considering the fanfare around it. And I mean, I don't know how much you remember the first season, but I just remember
I remember all of it.
Yeah, you could not go anywhere without hearing about Survivor or seeing stuff about Survivor. People like having like the shirts from like
Oh,
Survivor.
I should have brought my buff. I have a buff.
What? Missed opportunity. You have to
I
do
meant
that.
to.
What's a
later.
buff?
Everyone gets a buff when they start to show like what team you're on, and so
Oh,
like
that.
it'll be on different colors. So, like it'll just say like the Survivor logo and like whatever your team color is. Just like visually, so like when you're watching the competitions, you can kind of keep track of people. Yeah, so I have one from back in the day, Heroes versus Villains, my favorite season. I bought it live. I was like, Jeff, take my money.
I mean, it's clear why people like the show. I totally get buying into whatever it draws you in. There's different aspects for everybody, or like you, Shannon, where it's like the sauce is all there. Like you just kind of take every piece of it and it all blends together well. I mean, we're seeing it, right? It's still going 41 seasons later, 22 years now after the fact, and probably, who knows, might have another good decade or more in it, because who's going to stop watching it? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know at this point. I mean, the Real World fell off, but not even they tried to reboot that.
It's like I know like reality is known for like that kind of like manufactured drama, and I will say like Survivor doesn't have that much of it. There are, I would say, so I've also broken down the shows into different eras.
Okay.
If you want to hear those.
wanna-
Yes,
hear 'em.
please educate us.
So I said 1 through 8 is the classic era. So there's like no idols, no like kind of like any kind of like, it's all just straight shooting. Like you're in the 2 tribes, then you merge to 1 tribe and you vote someone out and blah, blah, blah.
What are idols?
Idols are something you define with clues, and then you could play it when you think you can block someone's voting out. So like if you're thinking, oh, Fred and Shannon are going to vote me out for sure, I found this idol, it will prevent me from getting voted out. And it'll be like a twist, because everyone will be like, oh my God, I thought we were going to vote you out. We didn't know you had an idol this whole time. Like it's just like a way.
Get out of jail free card.
Pretty
kinda.
much, but it's like you want to keep it a secret, because if someone else thinks you have an idol and they know that you have an idol, they're gonna like try and make you think they're gonna vote you out, and then they vote someone else out, so then you just washed your idol and you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, so classic era 1 through 8, no like thrills, no too many twists or anything like that. And then I have like the awkward phases for era. So that was 9 through 14. So there were like basic idols, kind of like how I'm saying they'll have like just like 1 idol or 2 idols per season. Yeah, there was also a huge controversy in one of those seasons where they did a race one. So they did different races against each other. Like I think it was Asian, Black Americans, white people, and
But the white people got a head
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
well, that's actually the Mad TV spoof, is like literally like, we gave the white people all this lumbar for making theirs.
my
Yeah, it was very controversial at the time. That's how you know how bad it was, that even at the time they're like, this is too much for us. Like,
Yeah.
'cause it was
That's
pretty
like when you
early
see
on.
how often they did blackface, like in 30 Rock, like, and you're like, that was not that long ago.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the awkward phases where Jeff's trying to see what works.
Yeah.
And then I said like the hot streak, which is seasons 15 to 20, which is solid, amazing seasons. Micronesia's in it. Season Survivor China, which is one of my favorites ever. Cool locations, great gameplay, a lot of like good strategy. Then there's the hot mess era, which is 21 through 27. And that's where the fake drama, I feel like he was like experimenting with having like characters more than like players. So he'd have people on there that he knew were going to be like dramatic and like just all that kind of fake things in reality you
Like
don't
that was his name, Johnny Turnabout, or
No, he was Turnabout.
I'm just gonna keep coming up with different names for it.
No, he actually, the reason why he was famous, and he's from like season 4, I think, or no, maybe season 7.
Okay.
The reason why he's like casted as like the villain is because he made up that his grandma died to like win an award. So he's like, oh, my grandma died. Like his like relative, because they always have one episode where maybe like your relatives come and play. And they like had like set up a whole thing where he's like, your grandma died, man. And he's like, oh my God, my grandma died. And they like basically gave him a win.
Oh, wow.
And that's like nothing compared to nowadays, what they'll do to lie and things like that. But it's just funny that that's what he was known for.
And all for $1 million too. That's what's crazy.
Just to lie about your grandma dying. Well, it's just kind of funny because then Jeff like called his family afterwards, and his grandma's the one that answered. She's like, "I'm fine."
Gotcha.
Oh my gosh.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right,
Then-
continue with your evolution here.
Then I said the gimmicky era, which is seasons 28 through 35, where they just have like a lot of gimmicks. So they had Blood versus Water, where you have you and like a loved one. So maybe your wife, maybe your sister, maybe your cousin, maybe your best friend. And you play against other people who have their loved ones too. And you're not one set team. You're still like individuals, but like they're on the island too.
Okay.
And then they had blue collar, white collar, red collar, which was like, you know, blue collar people, office type people, and then people who are like no collar, essentially, like people who are free spirits. Those were tribes. Then they had brain versus beauty versus brawn, heroes versus hustlers versus healers. Then they had millennials versus Gen X, which is such a cringy kind of yeah. So that was the gimmicky era.
Okay.
And then 36 through 40, I named it the playing for the Redditors era, where it's basically just like big moves, like, and you want to make sure you're like doing all this like strategy stuff, and people are like kind of doing strategy too early to like play up your clout, essentially, like, oh, look at my resume that I did, look at all these like moves I orchestrated, and like that's yeah. So then and then now we're at the post-pandemic cultural diversity petition. So there was a cultural diversity petition that got started during 2020, and now at least like 50 or maybe even more than that % of the cast can be not white.
Okay.
So like they are kind of making more moves to be more inclusive, and they've only been one season since then. It was a pretty great season. Great cast. So
Does it have a lot of like little tag-ins? I feel whenever I watch reality TV post-pandemic, where it's just like these little videos and it has the host like, the pandemic really changed a lot. You know, I can't watch, like, I know it's like especially like I watch a lot of cooking ones, and it's usually showing like all the support that the restaurant workers, it's usually good stuff. But I am so sick of those videos, like, but we're all tidying up around here and trying to do our best.
We're all in this together.
You see people like passing boxes of supplies with masks on. Ooh.
Yeah. I know. There's that actually just happened on The Amazing Race. So they've started filming the show, or this recent season now, beginning of like the pandemic. It was like January, February. They sent everybody home after 2 episodes, and they're like, now they're picking up now. I think it was like they filmed the rest last September. And yeah, and then obviously they got it all done right before things started hitting the fan again. It's just crazy that how many of these shows, like reality shows, just couldn't happen, right? Because it's like it all relied on big communities, big groups of people. I mean, we saw that on Great British Bake Off too, right? It was like, we're gonna have the bubble season,
Right.
and it's like, well, yeah, but there you're just in a kitchen,
yeah.
so it's
But
like,
how many cast and crew were involved? Like as you were saying, there were like over 300 crew members.
Yeah,
like there's a
right.
lot of people in
I know.
Survivor. That's why they couldn't.
it's crazy. I mean, it's good to know that they're actually taking steps to do it. Has there ever been any conversations around like the tribal element of Survivor?
I was thinking about that.
Meaning,
Like, do they like? Is there any like conflict with the fact that they're kind of like appropriating like tribal culture?
oh yeah, I mean, like in terms of what they would do different. Section jumping ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we want to get into coulda,
Yeah.
woulda, shoulda,
Yeah.
we
I
can
think-
go right ahead here.
Yeah, one of the things I said is like sometimes it is kind of cool because they're showing legit history of different cultures.
Sure.
And that aspect is cool. Like I would never know about like this set of tribe on Fiji. I would never know about like this kind of culture. But then also like the gross food challenge is kind of otherizing. That's like, oh, look at this gross thing these people
Right.
eat and drink. And that's
Yeah.
like really inappropriate and mean spirited really. And
Yeah.
so I would wish that they would either maybe take that into consideration with like the cultures a bit more, like maybe have them more in the forefront as opposed to like Jeff kind of like explaining it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so there definitely been conversations.
Or
about that.
if there's any like sort of financial like restitution or gains for indigenous people or people of these areas that are going to. I know it probably booms the tourist market.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people are like, I want to go to where they did the surviving. I want to go.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it for sure does do that, but there are some places too where they like, because they build all these sets, like it sort of destroys some of the
Messes with the
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Like I know, like I think they went to Guatemala for one season, and like that's still like not the same. Like their area, like the kind of the
Oh,
sets they
man.
built, to like you can still see it on Google Maps, like kind of how
Yeah.
they messed with it.
Sure. You know, it even made me think about how the theater we came from here, it was once upon a time called like Mojo Dojo Comedy, right? And it was all about like, oh, we're going to do like, you know, dojo type style classes and have like, you know, way of the crane and all that. And to be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe there's some cultural appropriation going on here. So that was what I was
Yeah.
thinking about with that. So I think that's.
Oh yeah, and they don't do that anymore. They have not for many seasons.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, like they don't talk about other cultures anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they've just been in Fiji for like 10 years.
Oh,
maybe
wow.
a little less than that. And no one actually remember.
Yeah, because I picture old school Survivor, like dude's coming out and he's got like
Yeah.
background extras in like tribal garb, like doing stuff that's probably
Yeah.
not legit.
Yeah.
Well, they do actually keep people from the real tribes are on the show.
That's
so
good.
like they'll in the beginning seasons they actually have people of the area involve them in like some of their cultural histories. Like, okay, you have to do a certain cultural dance and they'll teach them, or like sometimes they'll win an award where like a local will come and teach you like, oh, you can eat this, you shouldn't eat that. Like they'll have things like that. So I feel like
That's
they
cool.
have always tried, I think, to be culturally sensitive, but 2000 culturally sensitive is a lot different than
Yeah.
2022.
It actually makes me think of the scene in Temple of Doom when they're sitting at the table. Although this scene still grosses me out because they like eat like the snake and then they like cut it open. There's like live snakes and they're just eating that. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, you know, I respect if that actually is a culture that eats that stuff, but that still just looks gross. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Well, in Survivor 3 Africa, like a part of the culture is they drink cow's blood.
Yeah.
They just drink cow's blood, I guess.
Wow.
And like that was just like a big thing that they would do on the show,
Okay.
which I feel like was another otherizing kind of like, oh, that's so gross. But it's like, well, people drink that.
I was gonna
or-
say, I mean, people have different tastes all over the world. I mean, hell, there's people here that eat crickets, and it's like roasted crickets, and it's like that's not something I don't know that I want to take place in. But I mean, that's been at the Milwaukee Public Museum forever. They've had like
Yeah.
roasted crickets like on the rack, and it's like back in the day, some people probably didn't have a choice. Like that's what they ate, and it's
Or
like,
that's what they like, even if they
yeah,
have a choice.
maybe they did. Yeah, they just liked it. They liked the taste, but yeah, I don't know about crickets.
I'd eat cricket. I'd eat anything once.
Really?
Yeah.
I would get into like they do like a cricket meal, and like I just would struggle with the legs. Like I would still try it, but I think that would be the gross out part.
Yeah.
But like I know that they make like cricket flour and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That'd be more
Really?
think I
yeah,
mind the
protein.
legs.
Good protein in that cricket
I mean,
flour.
you
Maybe
have
nice
to believe
crunch.
so, right?
I think I'd like it. I mean, I've had crickets and I was fine with it, like chocolate covered crickets and stuff like that. That was
There's
fine.
Bel Air tacos.
Mm-hmm.
They have like at certain restaurants. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they did have like a cricket special taco.
Yeah.
And I remember on my first or second date, I think, with my current partner, we got one of the cricket tacos. We each split it, and I just remember I was like, because it was. I think it had origin. She was telling me in like Mexican cuisine, like, you know, like it was like, oh yeah, you know, traditionally like they would make like cricket tacos when they don't have, you know, anything else besides like beans or anything else. And so we're like, oh, well, let's give this a shot, you know, and we'll give it. And I just remember it was a very earthy taste. Like, it was just interesting.
I just feel like I know what it tastes like, so I
Yeah.
don't need to try it. Not like it's that in an overly gross way, but I'm like, I think I get it. You know? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
If people were telling me, oh, when you take a bite of this, you're gonna fucking cream. It's good.
Yeah.
But no, that's not what you hear. You hear like, oh yeah, this is something that people eat. Like you said, it's not like they eat it because it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's like they had substance and it was an option. You know?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
anything, however it's seasoned, you know. Like I've had good escargot, I've had bad escargot.
Sure,
you
right.
know?
My rule with escargot is I love it, but if they bring it out put back into the show, I'm kind of not as much into it. Like, I used to have a place I like to go where they had like kind of like a mini muffin tin, and it had the escargot with a little crispy, like flaky biscuit on the top, and you could just get the whole bite.
Yeah.
I love that, but then I went somewhere and they like put them back into the shells, and I was like, well, now I know it's snails.
Yeah, it does sound
That doesn't bother me.
Or like,
oysters, you know.
I think I'm
also
with you,
bad
though.
like that too, with calamari. Like if it's too much of a squiddy looking piece, I'm like, I don't want that one.
Yeah. Oh, I know. But sometimes they are really good with the legs. I think I'm with you though, Shannon. I think I would try anything once.
As long as it's not like terribly like they were like abusive to that.
Oh, right,
like
yeah.
shark fin
Or if
soup
it's like
or whatever. Things like that.
Like where they just sort of like,
Yeah,
treating the sharks like shit or whatever. But I mean, it's so much food right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know where half the stuff
True.
comes from. And yeah, so, just be ethical. If you have a choice to choose ethical food, please do. We would encourage you to do that. And also be respectful of people's cultures. I think that's the end of the day, right?
Right.
That's all it is. But other coulda, woulda, shouldas. What else do you guys have? Is like things you would have loved to see Survivor explore, or even just try and do like a twist on it.
I'd love a legit, and they never do this in reality show, a legit celebrity season.
Ooh.
I'm talking because I feel if you find the right celebrity who's kind of like, I picture like a Tom Cruise type or a Robert Downey Jr. These kind of sober guys who are into like kind of extreme stuff. I bet you could convince them. Although I want Tom Cruise to host it. He would be kind of a crazy host. But then get like, I want to see A-list. If you don't have a Golden Globe nomination, I don't want to see Gary Busey and like I don't know who else. I can't think of, but Coolio. I don't want to see those people. I want to see Michael Caine.
Yeah,
No, maybe not him. He's a little too old.
What, you don't think I could survive on an island?
Michael Caine here.
Rachel Dratch.
I think I'd be right.
That was an old joke someone told me. It was like, if you want to say Michael Caine the way he says his name, say my cocaine in the accent. My cocaine.
Michael Caine.
It's so good.
Yeah, I think that would be dope. I would love like a celebrity all season because we've had celebrities on the show. Mm-hmm. Like Jimmy Johnson was on there.
Oh wow. Were they
Cliff
competing?
Robinson was on there. Oh yeah, they're competing.
Oh wow.
They were contestants. And the thing is, like, if it's not an all celebrity season, everyone's like, especially if they're pretty well known, like, that's Jimmy Johnson. Like, I fucking know you're Jimmy Johnson. It puts a target on your back. It's like, okay, you're already like a millionaire.
Right.
Mike White was on season 38, and he wrote School of Rock, and he wrote the new show White Lotus. And like, honestly, that season worth a watch. Such a great season. That one's on Netflix right now.
Yeah,
he is so funny on it. Like, he's amazing, and he's on a lot of it, so it's worth watching.
White Lotus is one of those shows, like, I feel there's an essay to be written about pandemic era TV and how like there were so many shows at like locations like that, or even like the movie Old is like a movie perfect for pandemic time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of more, but there were a few, like there was that season show with Nicole Kidman, and she's like kind of like
it's like Nine Perfect Strangers or something like that. Yeah.
Another show where it's like, okay, we got a bunch of people together, we waited 2 weeks, and now we can film in like the wilds of wherever and not have to worry.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys brought up White Lotus because that was like my COVID sick show. Like while I was
loved that
sick,
show.
I watched the whole thing, and I talking about the otherism stuff of it all, and like it made me think of that scene where they're like watching the dancers at like the luau, and they're like, well, yeah, this is how they do, like, this is their culture, and they're just proud to do their dances, and it's just like, oh my god, I can't stand people like this. It's just, but yeah, that show is so wild, and I can't believe they're doing another season.
So poignant. Yeah,
it's good.
But yeah, he was on Survivor season 38.
That's wild.
Maybe he was inspired to write White Lotus.
He might be. He might have been from that. I went a step further even with the celebrity thing. I would love to see celebrity like survival people like Bear Grylls or like the Irwin kids like compete. People who know how to work their way around
Carol
an island.
Baskins.
Yeah, and like give them Carol Baskin.
Well, yeah, then she has to go up against Joe.
She's a survivor, right? Didn't they try and kill her?
Like she's fucking been against tigers.
They just like, we let Joe Exotic loose in the jungle.
Joe
Be
Exotic.
careful. He's just out there.
But like,
Well, she'd be competing against him, so she has to be
I
careful.
want to see what those people do though, like in the elements, like
Yeah.
people who actually like know how to survive, like Bear Grylls.
Yeah.
And you've seen him drink his own pee and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
You guys got to check out Alone, because that's part of it. There are people who like know all that stuff and like
Yeah.
know
They
what to
still-
do, and they build these amazing little shacks. And then you got the people who trip in the first,
Yeah.
which would be me, I feel.
The other thing that I said would be kind of cool. So Big Brother, I don't know if you guys heard of Big Brother.
Yeah.
It's basically Survivor without the survival stuff. And it's like they have a feature where you can pay CBS money to watch them 24 hours.
Wow.
Because there's footage going on in the house 24 hours. And I've like, there's a lot of people, I don't know if me personally, but there's a lot of people in the Survivor community that have like kind of wanted that for Survivor. Like you're filming 24 hours, like people are going to pay to like watch them, you know, do whatever. Then you kind of get like a full picture because everyone knows there is editing. There is a story they're telling. They're ultimately trying to tell you how did this person win, you know? But it'd be kind of cool to just like watch it all. Unfiltered in a way. And
Right.
I think that would be interesting. I don't know if
Yeah.
I would actually pay for that, but like
yeah, I was even just gonna think about too. Like, what if you just had people go off on their own? Like, you're not in a campsite with anybody else. You're off on a separate part of the island. The only
Exile
reason
Island, what's happened.
is that what that is.
That sounds like a
That's already
Survivor
happened.
thing.
Yeah.
Dang, see, everybody thinks of it. I haven't watched any of Exile Island.
Well, yeah, that's just like it's a feature in some. Sometimes it's a whole season twist, you know.
It's funny that we all were like, "Oh, I don't watch a lot of reality TV," and yet we can
Yeah.
just pull these references.
Right.
Like,
Right. Well,
left and right.
that just made me think. I remember when I lived in Fond du Lac, and I was like under 21. I didn't have a lot of friends. I lived there when I was going to community college, and I watched a lot of Ghost Hunters when I lived out there, and like I didn't believe much of the stuff, but I kind of liked the vibe of the show. It was a little spooky, and like they would talk about the history of the places they were going. And one Halloween they did like an all-night broadcast where you could go on and access all the cameras and send messages, and it was like a 24-hour haunt watch, and it made me think of that, which was really cool, and it would
Yeah.
be kind of interesting, a little weird, but also kind of cool to have like all the available cameras and you can like click through and watch that like
Yeah.
raw footage.
Yeah, that aspect would be super cool, and like being able to like see more of the truth of it because it is so much of editing that it'd be like, okay, what actually happened, and in the sequence of events that actually happened, as opposed to you piecing it together to try and make the results, you know, make sense.
You could catch people making naughties.
Yeah.
Very much so, right? So that actually made me think about something I wanted to ask you about, Shannon. So the first episode of the season I just got back to watch on Netflix, the people just seemed like they were shacking up in the same tent, like that night. They don't know each other.
I mean, you know, if the mood is right and the stars are bright.
And don't a lot of these locations get cold at night?
Yeah.
So you gotta get that body
that
temperature
body
heat.
So yeah, is that part of the survival aspect, or is this just people who get horny out there, or what is the story?
Listen, most people don't actually end up, you know, making whoopee. You know, most people don't end up actually shacking up because that's just asking for an infection.
I would imagine all the wilderness like that. Yeah.
Makeouts happen, which is still pretty gross because they don't brush their teeth. Like, that's still pretty nasty. And I feel like, you know, what better way to make an alliance than to make one out of, you know, sexual tension?
Consensual sex is
What-
an agreement to an alliance.
Yeah.
What I don't get is why is it called making whoopee?
Making whoopee?
Hold on, stay with me. When there's a device called a whoopee cushion, I feel if I was to squeeze a whoopee cushion, it's not the sound of a fart. It would be making whoopee. Why is it called whoopee if that's a whoopee cushion?
Well, have you heard of a different noise that can happen from a woman?
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at, which made the whoopee cushion so much weirder when I stick it under my grandfather.
Listen, yes, I think there's probably some of the onomatopoeia that comes with sex in there.
There are noises, squelchies.
But it really makes the whoopee cushion a much dirtier prank, I feel.
Yeah.
I remember putting a whoopee cushion under my great-grandfather, and it didn't go off because he was so frail.
Oh, no.
I think he was kind of just
He's like, oh, this is
sitting on
nice
it.
padding. My butt's so comfortable.
It's like, this really feels good in my hemorrhoids. That's throwing back to an old reality show, the Newlywed Game. You guys ever watch that?
No.
Oh man, well, I mean, it wasn't a reality show; it was a game show, but it's just about newlyweds would try and guess like how well they knew each other.
Okay.
And it was like always like, what did you write down? And Rick wrote down he loves macaroni, not rice-a-roni. Like, yeah, it's just a ridiculous show. So getting into kind of the end here of our power rankings. So this week, I wanted to talk about how would you power rank the skill sets you need to win Survivor? And Shannon, I don't know if you want to kick it off for us.
Yeah, I wrote the most important skill I think anyone could have is to kind of keep perspective, like constantly be thinking about what's everyone else's best move. Then you could sort of at least try to anticipate what they're going to be doing. Like, is it their best move to like vote with me? Does that mean they're going to keep voting with me? Okay, what's the best move for them? Are they going to like want to align with this person? And just trying to keep all of that in mind, because you have to be adaptable, because it will change at a drop of a hat. So that, I think, being adaptable and keeping perspective are the top skills.
Okay.
Or like keeping cool. I feel like, imagine how grumpy, like Tom, I know you could probably get a little grumpy when you're hungry, I bet. You turn a little monster. Imagine being in that high heat and all that, and how easy it would be to like just tell someone to like shut the fuck up. But you can't, because you gotta be cool.
But that might actually be a reason to keep Tom, because there are things where so also a funny thing in Survivor is there is a thing called a GOAT. And if you're a big sports fan, it means greatest of all time.
Meryl Streep.
If you're in Survivor, it's actually the GOAT you bring to slaughter. So you say that the GOAT is a bad thing in Survivor. So the GOAT would be a grumpy Tom that no one likes. You're like, oh, I want to drag him through the game, bring him to the final 3, and then people aren't going to want to vote this dude. So I'm going to keep the person that everyone hates because I will win against them. And that's what, it's always funny because I was not a big sports person growing up, so that's why I grew up with the term GOAT. And then I grew up and everyone's like, yeah, the GOAT. And I was like, what are you talking about? Why would that person be the GOAT? I don't get it.
Michael Jordan, the GOAT? What?
I like the idea of like setting like, I'm sorry, we're going to keep using this example, a cranky, hungry Tom, like knowing that he's cranky and angry and kind of like setting him loose on someone else so they have beef. Like, because I did that growing up with, like, my family, you know? Like, I was really good at, like, instigating, stirring the pot, they used to call it. Like, I remember, like, I'd get yelled at by my grandma, like, Fred, stop stirring the pot. And I would always just do, like, a hand motion of, like, a stir. Like, I'm just stirring the pot.
Stirring the pot. Fred, just...
So that, I think that
Give me my Snickers, man. Give me my Snickers.
Oh, that'd be a perfect Survivor skill, actually. Like, if you could see what would instigate somebody else... I just imagine me setting someone loose on someone else, and they just do my cut to for my confessional, and I'm just doing my little, just quietly pot stirring and nodding, just like, yeah.
My God, I think I like where you guys are going with that. I would even say possibly a skill that even plays into these is being a good actor, and not like in the sense of like, oh, you know, make sure you can deliver a line, but just like the mask you wear in front of people, right? And they're like, you know, oh yeah, I totally believe it, because you have to be believable if you're going to tell somebody something. You know, like, I mean, it goes back to the sociopathic skills we're talking about, but I think just being able to be like, being able to profess or kind of portray a certain mood, a certain, you know, vibe to kind of get with somebody, like, God, don't you hate Shannon? And it's like, yeah, worse. Do you know what she did to me? It's just, I think there is that element though of like, yeah, as much as you need to be, you know, skilled, I would say it's second is probably athleticism. But like,
Well, not really, actually.
You
A
don't
lot
think
of people
so?
who aren't athletic don't win. Like people vote out the athletic people because they're like, well, that means because basically there's the 2 tribes to start usually. Sometimes there's 3.
Okay.
Then it goes to the merge where everyone is individual playing. So then, if you're athletic and you're gonna win every immunity challenge, if you win an immunity challenge, you can't get voted out. The athletic portion. Then you have a target on your back. Like, okay, Tom's really athletic. We got to make sure the second he doesn't win, he's out of here. So, like, in like the last, like, probably 10 plus years, athletic people don't do well because
Really?
the second they get to that merge section, it's like, kick them the F out. Like, I don't know if I
Okay.
could swear on here. I don't know if I've already sworn.
You sure can. Just go for it.
But yeah.
We're an explicit podcast
Okay, good.
on
Rated
Spotify.
R.
Explicit.
Children, don't sign up for Survivor and don't listen to this podcast.
Hey, I said make naughties earlier.
Yeah.
so-
Naughties.
Wow.
We've actually been doing a pretty good job. I'd say the sex segment probably is going to get us a little bit of a little risque, a little PG-13, but yeah, I'd say so
Yeah.
far we're doing all right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I guess having been displaced from it so far and not having really seen a full season for a while, I think that's the type of thing you do lose out on is like, you know, what are the skills that people are like, this person's too
Yeah,
dangerous.
it changes for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there was one season someone incorporated what they called a meat shield, where they made an alliance with all the strong people within an effort to keep them as a shield, so that way when they were like kind of in that further game portion, people are just trying to get out those strong people, and so by the end he's like, "Bye-bye, I'm here because you got out my meat shield."
Wow.
You know? So that's what's interesting about it. There's just so many different strategies, and it's kind of cool to see how it all unravels.
Yeah.
And
What so I wanted to even go on a little further just for you, Shannon, then. What would you say are your top seasons or top themes, whether that's like the winners or, I mean, you're kind of talking about the gimmicky thing. I like the whole evolution.
Locations.
Yeah, or locations. Because you made it sound like it's like a person, right? It's like, oh, here it's in its youth, and now it's
Oh,
in its
yeah.
like weird
Oh, for
tweens,
sure it
awkward phase, and then it gets to be in adulthood.
Experimenting.
Yeah, it's trying to
Oh, yeah.
do some stuff. It's like his 20s kind of suck, but then his 30s is thriving.
really getting it.
I feel that.
Yeah, before I go into that, I will also say I think Jeff Probst is the best host of reality TV of all time.
Really?
I just want to throw that out there right now because he is so like adaptable and he's so like passionate. Like he legit cares every single season. Like he is so in it. Like he lives and breathes it, and that kind of passion is very like, you know, addictive, and you want to follow it.
The reason why you have Tom Cruise be the host, I feel like that's a very similar vibe. Like
Yeah.
you heard that Tom Cruise, like where he yelled at everyone about like the COVID thing.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the kind of energy I want out of my Survivor host.
Oh, and he would. Like, he's gotten mad at players. Like, you know, he'll break the fourth wall being like, how could you do this? You know, like, he's so, like, he cares so much about it.
Wow.
And I think that is very commendable. Does he make great decisions all the time? No. Does he make, problematic opinions every once in a while? He tries his best. But,
We're all trying our best.
yeah, sometimes he's not landing right. But,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so I just want to throw that out there. But in
that's
terms of
interesting.
my power rankings, is it top 3 or what are we saying here?
Let's do top 3. Yeah.
All right. Well, my top 3 of all time is Heroes vs. Villains. As I mentioned, I actually have a Survivor buff of that season.
Nice.
It's a full returnee season, and they like archetyped people like, okay, you kind of played like a hero in your season, you played like a villain, and they put those two together, and just amazing television ensued. Like just all the different strategies, all the different funny quips. Like it is amazing. One of my favorite winners of all time. It's a black buff. I love the color black. It's a great time.
I'm showing, for listeners at home, I'm showing a buff so that Frank
That's what
can
it looks
actually see
like.
this.
You can
and
wear it
that's
as
what
a
I
tank
can too.
top. You can wear it as a skirt. You can wear it as a bandana. As a
It's flair.
necklace. You can put on your wrist.
Yes, it's flair. I get it.
So Heroes versus Villains, honestly, number 1 of all time. Watch it. Number 2, Micronesia, which Thomas started, which was fan versus favorites. Also great, mostly because all the iconic people just make it so amazing. And there's such a great twist in that one where basically these girls convince one of the players to give up his idol that he like won from an athletics challenge, and he gives it to somebody else, and they immediately vote him out, and it's
Wow.
just gone down as one of the worst moves of all time. But it's just so fascinating to watch. And then my third favorite is Survivor China, which is all new people, but it's also just one great aesthetically, just like seeing a totally new culture, a new place. And the winner is just the best winner of all time. So those are my top 3.
Very nice. So if anybody's looking for those, I think they are on Netflix, or at least the Micronesia
2
one
is on Netflix. Heroes vs. Villains used to be, but they got taken off for some reason.
Isn't there a bunch on Hulu? Isn't it like all on Hulu?
I think Hulu and Prime.
Yeah.
Prime is what
I was even
Yeah.
going to say Paramount Plus, I would think.
Oh, Paramount
Maybe
Plus
does
for sure.
now.
Paramount Plus has all of them, and I will also kind of go back to the like terms of like resurgence of Survivor is partly due to Netflix, but also due to the pandemic. Myself and billions of other people did a full rewatch. Like I full rewatched all 40 seasons.
Billions of other people?
I would say billions.
I believe it.
Honestly, all right.
People out
Listen,
here.
there's like literally all the new people from the new season that got casted were all people that just started watching during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like or maybe not billions, but I think it's billions.
I was like, billions?
I think
You're talking
billions. Like literally all over the world who are watching.
continents worth of folks. That's
Yeah, I think
I
so.
don't know. I don't know.
I will say, having you on and like us talking about this, like I said before, we wouldn't have really touched on this if like it was just episode M9, and that's why I love this, because when I hear you talk about Survivor, I get excited about
Yeah.
Survivor, and that's what I love about this podcast. I like hearing people being passionate about. In some capacity, does not matter at all. But
Excuse me. Just kidding.
I'm sorry, but hey, I love so much shit that does not
That's
matter.
Yeah.
It's
But
fair.
if it matters to you, that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think that's exactly it. And I think when we kind of get into some concluding thoughts here, it's interesting to be looking at it and be like, I don't know that Survivor, and this is part of the reason I think why I fell off after season 2. I don't know that it was always my cup of tea. Just because it's like, as part of the fanfare, I liked it. I liked the competition aspect. I wasn't always into the drama, but that's reality TV in general for me. It's like the more that's involved, I think the more checked out I get. So that's why I never really watched The Real World or anything like that. But I can get into like The Amazing Race or like Great British Bake Off, where it is just the competition and you just have personalities, and it's like, okay, that's fun. But but I think it is such an interesting thing to look at, because it has persevered more than any other reality TV show I think we can say to date, outside of a game show like Jeopardy, which I don't
Yeah.
even know if you can count that. Is that a reality show, or is a game show something different?
That's what's crazy about it. It's like a mix, reality and the game show element.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just a good one. I think I'm glad we got to talk about this one too, because there's so many aspects to it. There's so many different things.
Yeah, and it legitimized reality TV in that aspect. After Survivor blew up, that's when everyone's like, oh, reality TV can make money. Like, oh, let's make American Idol. Oh, let's do, X Factor, all that
To
stuff.
some extent, it's kind
Exile
of budget
Island.
friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get all these spin-offs, all these different versions of
Fear
it.
Factor,
Yeah. We went a little far the other way when we hit the Kardashians, 'cause I just don't think that needs to exist. I don't care.
How do you guys feel about Undercover Boss?
Never watched it.
I never really watched
I feel
it
like that
either.
stuff kind of feels faker to me. Like
It's
because
super
it's so
fake
like
feeling.
formulaic and so like they want reactions and because it is like a one episode thing, like they're just like button, hit it, like it's not organic at all.
But it is pretty fun when they put the CEO in like a goofy mustache.
Oh,
That is true.
No, it's good.
And I do like, and I just want to add this into like reality shows. I do get suckered into like touching moments. Like,
Oh, sure.
there's a lot of stuff in Undercover Boss where it's like he meets someone while he's sweeping who's like, yeah, I'd like to go to college, but I'm taking care of both my parents who are ill and all that. And at the end, he gives them like a college grant and they
Yeah.
cry. I am a sucker for that when it comes to
for
reality
sure.
stuff.
No, they definitely know how to play on the emotional beats. I mean, right? Don't you like feel it every time like a favorite gets voted off of the island and like.
Oh yeah, or family visit. As a family visits, I honestly cry every time it's Survivor, just because it's usually so touching, especially if it's either like a child-parent relationship or like a spouse. Like there are times where like people, because again, you haven't seen your family in at that point probably like 23 days, and you're in this harsh like, you know, situation, and then all of a sudden you see the one person that like you're like you love and like you trust, and you just see them sometimes like literally fall to their knees like crying, and it like makes me want to tear up right now.
I love it in those when they like show the video of the family. I feel there's always a person who's like, well, I have to have my dog in the shot. You ever notice like those videos where they're like, we're so proud of you that you're winning. Someone's got like a lap dog that they like. Yeah, we have to have little Charlie in here for sure. We're really proud of you.
I'm pretty sure part of the reason why I loved Matrix 4 so much is because it looked like my cat was starting.
Oh.
Deja vu. I was like, that's Gigi.
The black
That's
cat.
my Gigi.
Oh my god. Could do a whole. I mean,
So I get it.
And someday we will do a whole thing on the Matrix. I think.
As you should.
We got to make sure they're done making them though. I think that's the first and last element to that.
I would want to
think
wait.
about having Jay on there because he's a pretty
Big Matrix
expert.
head.
I think we're gonna get a non-Wachowski Matrix that's gonna be like Ghostbusters Afterlife, like all these kind of like rebooty sequels. And I kind of want to see it. I'm curious because I know I'm going to get some of that dumb action I want.
Yeah.
But I think that's when I'd want to do a Matrix episode because I feel there's going to be another one and it's going to be a non-Wachowski one. And I want to know what that is with the whole soup of the franchise.
As long as it's not like Rise of Skywalker level, then I'm okay with giving that a shot. Yeah, that's some good thoughts on Survivor and a little beyond. Shannon, is there anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, I'd like to plug the theater that we're all a part of.
Yeah.
The Interchange Theater.
What? The Interchange?
Interchange Theater, a local Milwaukee theater, but we do have stuff up on YouTube, so if you're not local, please check it out. I'm part of a group also called Sports Bra. We're independent, but also independently funny. I don't know, we're all great. And yeah, check us out.
Awesome. We will definitely do that. Once again, for everybody, as you've heard every week, interchangetheater.com is where you can find more resources and workshops going on.
Interchange. Eric, I'm talking to you.
Please
Give us
fund
some
us.
money. We are your biggest advertiser.
We
Throw
want
us some
funding.
swagger.
Yeah. Give us some swag. Give us some cash. Whatever you want.
Give us a barb or whatever it is. Is that what it's called? The thing? What did you get from Survivor?
A buff?
A buff, yeah. Give us.
I'm like, what is he talking about?
I thought you were talking about an interchange thing. I was like, wow, I don't know.
Give us a buff, an interchange buff.
We want that interchange buff.
You want that?
I will also mention we now also have a Buy Me a Coffee account, which we are accepting drinks. You can buy Fred and I a drink. It is buymeacoffee.com/SOTF. Just if you want to keep supporting the show and want to keep seeing us do some great stuff, we're going to invest anything that gets donated into the show itself. So, feel free, but we're not requiring anybody to do that. It's all just out of the kindness of your hearts. And we just ask from the bottom of your souls if you're a giving person here in the year of our Lord 20 and 22.
Yes. And
Watch
spread
all
the
of
word.
Survivor. That's what I'm also going to plug. Watch all of Survivor.
Watch all of Survivor. Yes, we can watch Survivor.
Tweet Survivor.
it's
Hashtag State of the Franchise.
Yes. We have also all sorts of great stuff coming up for us too. We'll be talking about next week. Maybe not next week. Might be 2 weeks. We've been on every 2 weeks here now. The English Premier League. We'll get into some sports action, some soccer for you folks out there.
Yeah, I've been watching a documentary about the league recently. I'll get into it when we talk about it, but I actually have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah. Very excited to move from a reality game show to reality sports. It's gonna be some interesting stuff. So stay tuned for then, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.